Photographic Composition, Lecture 8, Sports and Action, Part 3. As I've mentioned, very often, especially with sports photography, you will see either the subject appearing to stand still with the background blurred, or the opposite. In this case, we see the background blurred, but also take note of the angle in the frame of the skier. You'll often see diagonals exploited like this. And even when the athlete isn't in profile, we see diagonals in action here. There's not only the poles, but also the body, the lower body. This implies momentum and speed and action at its highest. Same thing here. This also has the benefit of showing the extreme angle which the snowboarder is in relation to the landscape. His hip is almost touching the snow. And with cycling, here with the action frozen, we see the cyclist clearly, and we see fans on the sidelines taking pictures also clearly. And here we see the diagonals again, with the riders apparently or appearing to lean into a turn. I mean, they are leaning into a turn, but they also look like they're about to go downhill, which is not necessarily the case. I've mentioned Joel Grimes before, who specializes in photographs of athletes in action. But as I've mentioned, also very often his images are made separately. So this landscape, this alleyway, was taken at a separate time to the time that he photographed the athlete, and the two were then combined later on in Photoshop. And here we see action with a lot of the context, which is something that we don't often see in sports photographs, usually because people, I think, prefer to see their action big and sort of in your face, and this has a more sort of balletic quality to it. This is much more what we're used to seeing, where everyone's huddled. Again, notice the diagonals with the legs. Again, diagonals. Just appears to be raw speed and power. This is an early image of Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan, the beginning of Kobe's career and near the end of Jordan's career. And this is actually a cropped version of a much wider image. But again, because there was a desire to show what was going on with these two great athletes emotionally, the tighter cropping is the one that was preferred here. A very tight action here. This is a relatively early, probably mid-70s photograph where the lighting is quite dark except for overhead. This is not what you would see today. And there's a drama to this that I think is missing from most images now, which are all incredibly lit. No matter what angle you shoot from, you see lots of detail, but I think there's a lot to be said for shadows and mystery. This is a Walter Ayus image of a surfer, which has endured, I think, largely because it conveys the landscape so well and the surfer's relationship to it. And it's a far from perfect image. You can see it was shot on film. It's from the 70s. And there are actually striations in the dark area of the wave. These are caused by the irregular agitation of developer from the sprocket holes in the 35mm frame. And this, so it's suggesting that this film was either over or under processed. Vantage point is everything in sports photography, right place, right time. And clearly there are photographers who have to get right down into the action with the athletes. Another incredible image, I think, of placing the surfer in the middle of the environment, which is just absolutely stunning and also very dangerous looking. Again, action in which we see the faces of the athletes clearly, but their legs in the background are all in motion. Oscar Pistorius, who is unfortunately known for other events now, but was the first person with prostheses to compete in an Olympic event. It's still astonishing to see this image. Pictures of Michael Phelps, obviously a much photographed athlete. Here where the action is completely frozen. And in this instance, looking very similar to the previous shot, but where the shutter was left open a little bit longer, and as a result, the water in particular is leaving these trails that one sees in time lapse. And an image of an athlete with no background behind her. Again, the diagonal. And another example of the same kind of image. And you'll notice the lighting. There are highlights coming from both the, or bouncing off the left sides of her features and also the right sides of her features. There are multiple lights set up in order to capture this. And those are the telltale signs. Again, ballet, very similar to a lot of athletic events. And here, taking advantage of strobes, which allow action to be frozen. And again, the diagonal. Movement and power and action. Here, again, diagonals, but also tighter cropping, where portions of the dancers are actually going out of the frame to put the viewer even closer into the action. And here we see a dancer doing the impossible, seeming to levitate. And again, diagonal. And here dancers are seen in relative close-up. We see a number of faces, and this is something that isn't seen as much in dance photography, but I think adds to the story of what they're doing. And photography is obviously particularly useful in conveying what most of us are unable to see firsthand. Here we see a rock climber moving up a chimney and seeming to do something that would be impossible. Also seemingly impossible, and yet people do these things. And here we see the activity taking place, but only in silhouette, with the intention of also showing the landscape.